Hello Crafty Friends, this is Jen and thank you for joining me today. The card I'm going to be making today is called the Landscape Rectangle Accordion card, and this is a die set that you can get from Burniston.com. The first step you want to do is cut your panels. And the nice part about this card is you can have as many panels as you like. You could have 2, 3, 5, 10, it doesn't matter, you could keep going. They also have 2 different add-ons that go with this die set, and today we'll be using the fence add-on. I die cut these panels using heavyweight 110 pound smooth white cardstock, and I am just folding the tabs and using my bone folder to get a good crisp fold. This is important because we are going to be gluing these tabs together to make the accordion card, and you really want a nice crisp fold on these. So I'm doing this with all 3 panels. Now really, I don't need to do it with the centerpiece because we're not going to be using that, but it's good if you decided to make this card and you didn't want to use the fence add-on, you would need to fold those tabs on the centerpiece. Now once I'm done folding all the tabs, I'm going to die cut borders to go around the edge of each panel. And to do this, what I've done is used Burniston's short rectangles die set in the largest and second largest die down to create these panels, and I used a pretty blue gingham Easter type of paper. And the largest die in that set gives it that nice cross-hatch pattern around the edge of each panel. And we'll be gluing those on in a minute. This is just a card that I made before using all kinds of different die sets of hers, and that's how the fence will work. It's a nice little accordion card, and it's kind of a surprise when someone gets it because it's a different kind of pop out or pop up. So we're going to use Lineco neutral pH glue in a fine tip bottle, which you can also get through Burniston.com. And I'm just going to glue on each of these panels, or each of these frames, I'm sorry. And you'll notice that these frames give you a very nice, clean border around it using your base color. And you could use any base cardstock. If you're making like a Halloween card, you could use black cardstock. I'm just using my craft block to hold those pieces down so that they glue nice and flat. And we're just going to do that for each rectangle panel. I really love this pretty blue gingham paper. I found a pack of different colored gingham paper through Echo Park, and that's what I used today. The nice part about this glue is that it doesn't set right away, so it gives you some time to maneuver your pieces together if you need to make a small adjustment. And it holds really well. It doesn't take too long to dry either. So now I'm going to get my ruler and a pencil, and I'm just going to mark a line, and you'll see there's 2 little cut pieces, and that's what helps turn the center panel when you put everything together. But we don't need that whole panel because we're going to use the fence add-on. So I'm going to trim where I have made my pencil lines because we only need that center strip, and that's what's going to hold the fence on. And then we can just discard what's left because we don't need that now. So I'm just going to use my little scissors and trim those little pieces out. And I like using a ruler to do this, mostly because I just like straight lines. You could just eyeball it. You don't have to use a ruler. But as my husband says, I'm OCD about certain things, and I guess straight lines is one of them. So now I'm just going to lay the fence panel on just so I can see whereabouts I'm going to glue it down. You want to try and center it because you're going to be gluing the tabs on either side to the other two panels. And this is the centerpiece of the card. So I just want to measure out where I'm going to place it. And before I do anything, I'm going to go in with my Copic E40 marker, which is called Brick White. And I'm just going to add some shadow to the fence. And as I make videos, you're going to see that I really love coloring. I love coloring die cuts. I love coloring stamped images. I just love coloring, and I think I've been like that since I was a kid. So you're going to see a lot of coloring videos on this channel. And I'm just going through and I'm just shadowing the one side of the fence. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it just adds a little bit of dimension to the fence panel. So it kind of pops when you open the card, which is kind of nice. So I'm just going to go through and do this. And you don't have to use an E40 color. You could go in with a very light gray. You could go in with a warm gray. Anything that kind of looks like a shadow. But because this is an Easter scene and I'm thinking it's a, somewhat spring, warm, sunny day, I just went in with a warmer color. And I went a little thicker with the color on the bigger pieces of the fence. Only because there'd be more to see, like if it was a real fence, there'd be more shadow there. Okay, so now we're going to glue this fence piece onto the center panel. And I'm just going to make a little glue line right down the middle. And I'm just going to use the bottom of the fence because it's nice and straight where those panels are, or the fence posts are. And then I'm going to center the two tabs on the ends of the fence. You don't want it too low and you don't want it too high because you don't want a catch point. And there already is going to be a catch point on this. And you can see at the bottom, there's that little tab that sticks out and it just popped out there. So I'm just going to trim that with my scissors. And now you can see it turns perfectly. So I'm just making sure that my piece is nice and folded. We're going to glue this down. And then what I do is I'm going to butt this up because this is going to be a valley fold. So I'm going to butt the centerpiece up to the first panel. Just make sure that it's nice and straight. And then what I'm going to do is fold the front panel over. And then I like to make sure that the two pieces meet up so that it's straight. There's not an overlap. It's not crooked when you fold the card. And I'm just going to press that down nice and good and let that glue set. And there's two pieces put together. So you can see how this is going to eventually all come together. Those two fence panels are going to pop out. The card frame itself is going to pop back. Right now I'm just measuring the fence piece for the front, the very first panel, because I'm only going to use half that panel. So what I want to do is just measure out exactly how much I'm going to trim off. So I'm going to take my ruler and my pencil and I'm going to make a line where I'm going to trim. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that piece off. And again, you don't have to do this. You could just use the centerpiece with the fence add-on and have two regular pieces on either side. You could have it all fence. It doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that. And that's the nice part too, is why it makes it such a versatile die, is because you can just do anything with it, really. So again, I'm measuring up my fence piece and deciding where I need to trim. And then I'm going to trim that extra fence off that I don't need. And then I'm going to glue that on using my glue. I never used to be a glue person. I used to be a pretty dedicated double-sided adhesive person. And once I started making pop-up cards and I started using this neutral pH glue from Lango, I just loved it. And now I use glue more than I use double-sided adhesive. So as you can see, those two pieces, those tabs are going to glue together eventually once we get the card decorated. So the best thing to do is put the whole card together before you glue anything permanently. You're going to do all your decorator pieces, you're going to get everything together, and then that is going to be the last step. Now I'm going to trim the end tab off of the last panel because we're only going to use 3 and we're not going to glue another panel on, so we don't need that tab. I also trimmed the small tab off of the center panel because we're only going to be using half of that as well. So again, I'm going to measure out where I want my fence to go. And I'm just going to make a little mark and then use my ruler to try and make a straight line. And then we're just going to trim that piece off. But I realized that I needed to cut a little more, so we're going to do this again, make another line and trim another little bit off. And I'm just going to trim those last tabs because we're not going to need those. We're just going to need the 2 tabs on the other end. I think this is the best part about card making, is that you can just decide different things as you go along. I don't know if you're like me and I have an idea in my head of how I want a card to go, and then all of a sudden another idea will come in, and then I start changing that, you know, doing something different. And I think that's what I like best about doing creative things, is that, you know, you come up with new ideas as you go along. So I'm just going to measure again where I want my fence piece to go. And then I'm going to trim this fence piece again because I'm not going to use that large post at the end. And then I'm just going to glue that on and then press it down really well to hold the glue. And there we go. So now I've realized that I didn't do any shadow on these, so I'm just going to go in with my E40 and I'm going to add my shadow in so that all the fence panels look the same. So we're just going to quickly do that. And we'll do that with the first fence panel as well, on the first panel of the card. And then it's almost time for my favorite part, the decorating pieces. So the last panel is going to be a mountain fold. So this time I'm just going to line it up, and then I'm going to fold the last panel over to meet up with the middle panel. And I'm just pressing that down well, making sure that the panels center each other. And I'm just going to hold that down while the glue sets. Another thing that's nice with this glue is it does dry clear. So if you do get like a little blob, it's not going to be white on your work. I'm just showing the grass pieces that I die cut. This comes from Karen Burniston's Easter border die set that just came out this spring. That's also where I get the Easter eggs that go with this as well, and the carrots. So I used quite a few pieces from the Easter borders die set. And I'm just showing you how it folds now. Okay, so here's the Easter eggs from the Easter border die set. And if you've seen my previous video, well, my first video on here, this is a coloring tutorial that I did of these eggs. So for the first eggs, and I'm only going to show the one strip of eggs because it's kind of redundant seeing both colored. I'm starting with the blue color. So I'm going in with the B05, which is a darker blue color. And then I'm going to go in with the B02, and that's what I'm using right now. And I'm just going around the egg. So the B05 is your shadow, the B02 is your middle, and then the B00 is the lightest color, which is kind of where the shine would be. And I'm just going to do that for every fourth egg. And really, you can use any color combination of Copic markers that you like. I was trying to go for a very pale, Eastery colored color combination for these eggs. I did do a card previously where I went with very bright, vibrant colors, but I thought that this card needed something a little more muted. So I went with more of a pastel colored. Now we're going to go in with the yellow, so I'm using Y17, Y13, and Y11. And it's the same process over again. You're going to do your shadow. Then you're going to take your middle color and go around the egg, blending into that shadow as well. And then last, go in with the palest color, the lightest color, and you're going to make the highlight area. And then I'm just going to continue that with the other two eggs. That will be yellow. When I first started card making, I used pencil crayons. I used a very soft Prismacolor pencil crayon. And I found that because I pressed very hard, everything would smudge if you touched it. And so one day I decided, you know what, I'm going to give Copic markers a try. And now all I use is Copic markers. I have quite the collection. So we're going to do green now. It's G07, YG25, and YG11. Another thing I really like about Copic markers is they have refills. Prismacolor pencil crayons I found broke quite easily, especially when sharpening them. And I was going through them a lot faster. Here I can just fill them back up, and I don't have to worry about pencil crayons breaking. So you're going to do your dark color at the bottom. You're going to go in with your medium color all around, and then the lightest color in the middle. And we're just going to repeat this process for the greens. Now we're going to go in with pinks. So we're going with R85, RV42, and R00. I thought about using purple, but I find that I have a hard time finding a good combination of Copic purple color markers. So if you know of a good combination of different Copic purples, let me know in the comments below. That would be really helpful. And again, you're just going to do the darkest color as the shadow on the bottom, go with the middle color all around the egg, and then the lightest color in the middle. And there you have it. So now we're going to use a white jelly roll pen, and I really like to use a size 10. It's a little bigger. And we're going to make some shine lines onto our eggs. I know with the yellow, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look up close, it is there. So I'm just going to make these shine lines on each of the eggs. If I was just making a couple of single eggs, I'd also use glossy accents on those. And once they dried, then I'd go on with my jelly roll pen so the shine line was really sharp. And then the egg is kind of shiny, and it adds some neat dimension to it. And then that's all done. So next we're going to move on to the carrot border. So this is another border set that came with the Easter borders from Karen Burniston. And I'm going to go in with YR09. And then I'm going to go in with YR04. And I'm just going to kind of highlight the little carrot lines, going with the lighter orange. And I'm going to do that with all of them. Now we're not going to use all of the carrots, we're just going to use a few of them. And once I'm done coloring the orange, I'm going to trim these carrots off before I do the green on the top of each of these. Only because some of them are going to be trimmed in a way that you're not going to be able to use them. Now, if I was just using it as a border, I would just go in with my green. But because I'm not using it as a border, I'm cutting them into individual little carrots. I have to kind of trim around each of them to make it look like they were an individual die-cut carrot. So we'll just trim that top part, round it off a bit. And you can still see a bit of white, so I'm just going to trim that just a tiny bit more. And we'll just trim that last little white bit off at the end. And I'm looking at this and I think I realize that it's just not going to work because that one side's just flat. So I'm going to put those two aside and we'll just use the floor that we die cut or that we trimmed. So for the green at the top, I'm going to use, and I believe it's G07, and I'm just going to make some little lines. So a line straight up and then little lines where each of the little rounded parts are, if that makes sense. And yes, that is G07. And then I'm going to go in with my YG25 and I'm just going to color in the rest of the white. I really like that YG25. It's one of my favorite green colors. So we're going to set those carrots aside now that they're all ready to go. And we're going to move on to the chocolate bunny. So this is part of the Easter Charms die set from Karen Burniston. And as you can see, it has a little hook on its ear. And this is something that you can trim off if you just wanted to use it on its own like I'm going to, or you could pop out that little middle piece and make it a charm, and you could put a piece of string on it to hold it from the middle of your card, or you could put a little metal tab in and hook that to the card, and then it dangles. So these charm pieces are like little danglers that you can use, which is kind of neat because there's different die sets that she has that has that ability to hang something from the center. And I'm sure I'll do a video on that at some point. So the colors I'm using for my chocolate bunny are E49, E59, and E25. I'm just going in with the darker color, which is the dark bark, to make shadow lines, and then going in with the walnut, which is the medium color. And then we're going to go in with the E25 for the rest of the chocolate bunny. And I just want to go over those lines, make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And I'm going to go around the edges so that you don't see a white edge around the bunny when you put it on the card. Now we're going to color the bow, and I'm going to attach that to the little bunny. So I'm using BG49 and BG15. And we're going to make a little blue bow to go on that little chocolate bunny. I'm just adding some shadow lines where the ribbon would be. And then going in with the lighter color on top of that. Now we're just going to glue this to the bunny's neck using a little drop of glue. Now, if you're like me, you do not have dainty fingers. So these little tweezers are super handy to have. And I'm just dabbing away any excess glue, making sure it's on exactly where I want it. And then our chocolate bunny's done. So now we're going to use Karen Burniston's Spring Animals die set. It comes with a bunny and a chick, and we're going to do the bunny right now. So with the bunny comes the background for the ears and a little belly patch. We're also going to use a basket and 3 little eggs that go in the basket that the bunny's going to hold. So we're going to go in with a gray color, an N1, and I'm just going to highlight some shadow areas around the bunny. We don't want it to be, I want it to be a white bunny, so we're just adding a little shadow. It's not going to be completely gray. And then we're going to go in with an N0 and go over top of that and kind of blend that together. So it adds just a little bit more shadow, just not as dark. Now I stipple my Copic marker onto the tail so it looks kind of almost fuzzy. I'm going to go in with a darker gray just to make it stand out a little more after I use the blender one. And what I do is I go in with the blender and I just smooth out those gray colors because you don't want them to be so sharp. And then using the blender just helps to smooth out those lines. So I'm just going in with the N1 again to stipple some more of the tail. And I'm going to go in with an N2 just to make that pop a little bit more. So now we're going to color these pink. I'm going to use R85, RV42. We're going to make a little bit of a shadow. And I don't have to color the whole earpiece because really it's only those tiny little pieces on the ear that are going to show. But the whole belly is going to show on your bunny. So if you're going to color that in, then color the entire thing. But with the ears, I only have to do the small section there. And really, you could just use scrap cardstock. You could make it any color that you wanted. But I chose to do pink today. Another tip when using Copic markers to color die cuts is the die cuts will get onto your worktop. I have a glass worktop that I use. And if I don't clean it after every use, then sometimes those colors will blend into other colors. And so I just try and make sure that I just spray a little bit of water, use a paper towel or a cloth, and clean up whatever I colored beforehand so that I don't end up getting green on my white bunny or whatever other color. So I've just put the little belly piece on, and there's a little bit of a die cut area under the bunny's chin, and it just slides up inside there, as you can see on the back. And I'm just adding a little glue around the ears, and then I'm going to glue the back piece on for the ears. And you just want to kind of center that in. How cute is that? So I'm just going to put my craft block on, hold it down, make sure it's good and glued together. Now we're going to actually bring out the die cut piece, and we're going to use it to stencil the face on. And you'll find that a lot with Karen Burniston's dies is that they do have stencil features. You can even use ink on them and press on different things onto your die cuts. So I'm just going to use a 0.5 pen, and I'm going to highlight the nose and mouth and do the eyes. And there's his little face. And I'm just going to go in with R00 and just make some little blush marks on his face. So now we can set that aside, and we're going to work on the basket. Just getting rid of some extra glue on there. So for the basket, we're going to use my favorite brown color combination, which is the R37, R35, and R31. So I'm just going to go along the sides of the basket with the darker brown color. And I'm going along the little ridges in the basket so that it really highlights those, and around the bottom of the handle of the basket as well. And then I'm just going to go in with my medium color. Do the back of the basket. Not sure you're going to really see much because the eggs are going in there, but just in case, I like to do that. And then go in with the lightest brown color. Now for these little eggs, I decided to do yellow, blue, and purple. So I just went with 2 colors this time, just because they're so tiny. They don't really need too much dimension. They're going to be in the basket, so. But again, tried to go with pale, Easter colors. And this is about the best purple combination that I can find. But like I said, if you know of another one, let me know. That would be great. So the inside of this basket has a little cut line that you can slide the eggs into. So I'm just going to add a little dab of glue, and then I'm going to put those into the basket. And what I do is I put 2 eggs into the slit in the basket, and then I add the 3rd egg to the 2 that are inside. I just glue it to the back. Now again, because I have bigger fingers, sometimes it's easier to use my tweezers for this. I think I'd be lost without my tweezers. And then I just glue, and then I just glue that last egg in behind the other two. And then I'm going to dab it with my finger, straighten it, and then make sure that I get any excess glue off. And now we're going to glue the basket to the bunny. And then it looks like the little bunny is holding the basket of eggs. And the nice part about these die cuts is the arms on all of her animals are die cut out in a way that you could have them holding something. And she has a huge selection of different animals that you can use for any card, from safari animals to forest animals, alligators. It's really great. So this is a little egg that comes with the Spring Animals die set, and you can just trim one side and then the little egg like hatches open, and we're going to put the chick inside. Now the chick does come with a little mouth, and it comes with little legs if you weren't going to put him in an egg, but we're going to put him in the egg today, so we don't need the little legs. So for the chick, I'm going to use Y17, Y15, and Y02. And again, I'm just going in with the darker color to add the shadow lines. And then we're going to go in with the Y15. And we're going to blend those two together. And then go in with the Y02 to finish it off. Now we're going to place the die cut onto the colored piece, and we're going to add his eyes. This also will give you an idea of where the mouth will be placed as well. For the mouth, I'm just going in with a dark orange and then a light orange. And we're just going to add a little drop of glue and then add the beak. And I'm just using my quick pick to pick that up, and then the end tip to just straighten it out. Now I'm going to use my brick white again to add some dimension to the eggshell. And I'm going to pop the little chick's arms out just a little bit. And then we're going to glue him into the egg with just a little glue on the bottom. And there we go. So in the Easter charms set, there comes these two large eggs. One doesn't have a charm piece to it, and one does. And I've trimmed the charm dangler piece off. So for this egg, it has different wavy lines on it, and I'm just going in with different colors. So for the first one, I'm using BG49, BG15, and I'm just doing a top and bottom line with this like teal colored blue. And then we're going to go in with a yellow. So I'm using Y17 and Y15. And this one's going to be a bit of a more vibrant egg. I'm just doing the top and the bottom. And then we're going to go in with the pink, which is R85 and RV42. And you're just going to shade into the sides and then go in with your lighter color. And last, we're going to go in with a green. So we're going to use G07 and YG25. And that one's done. So for this one, I decided to go with a very, very bright purpley pink. I went with an RV09, RV06, and RV02. Thought I'd try something different, and I really loved how this one came out. Now, I know it's hard to see, but the actual die that creates this egg has polka dots on it. And the nice part is you can place the die cut over top. You could go in with a white stamp or a white ink. You could brush it on. You could use a white pen. But we're going to set it aside to dry for now. So I die cut these little flowers. This came from the Karen Burniston Tiny Trees pop-up. And I'm just adding a little bit of a pale pink to the tips of the inside of the petals. And then I'm going to go in with a darker yellowy orange color, or yellowy red, I guess it is. And this, I'm just going to add these little flowers, like spring blooms coming up around my Easter scene. So I'm using a YR14 to go into the center of each of the flowers. And then we'll set that aside. So I'm going to get my card back out at this point, and we're going to start decorating. Now, what I should have done before I put the fence on, and I realized this after, was added these panels. So I decided to use a yellow gingham paper to go along with my blue, and I just measured out the little piece and then glued it on, trimmed it where I needed it, and then I've glued it on. But really what I should have done is die cut those pieces first and then put the fence on top of them. So now what I'm doing is measuring out how many eggs I need and trimming around those for each of the fence pieces. And whereabouts the grass is going to go. Now I didn't color the grass, I left it plain. And I'm just trimming the grass where I want it. And the eggs are going to go in behind the grass, so I have to kind of figure out where to glue the eggs on. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue onto the fence panel and then adding my eggs. And you just want to press those down until the glue dries, excuse me. And I'm just adding a little glue to the grass pieces. And then we're going to glue that grass on. And again, press it down and hold it until the glue dries. Or you could use your stamping block to hold that down. So I die cut the Happy Easter sentiment from, it's a new die that Karen came out with in the spring. And it's just a Happy Easter sentiment. And I used picked raspberry and cracked pistachio distress ink to create that. And what I did was just put it on a scrap piece of heavyweight cardstock and then die cut it from the colored cardstock that I used the distress ink on. So it kind of gives it a nice variegated look. And then I'm just going to add that to the front panel. And you can have a little bit of overlap because there is that little bit of leeway around the edge of the center panel to the outer panel. And I'm just pressing that down so it's on there good. And I decided I'm going to add a little carrot here. I'm just going to add that right beside the sentiment. And I'm going to add a couple of little flowers. Oop, that one stuck to my finger. So now I'm going to move on to the center panel, and I'm going to place out where I want everything to go, because this is the bigger panel, so there's going to be more things added to this one, such as the chocolate bunny and the 2 eggs and a whole strip of eggs that from the border and more grass and different things like that. So I'm just kind of placing things out, deciding where I want them, trimming what I need to trim. Actually, a good way, if you place things out, and I got this really great tip from Jennifer McGuire's videos. Place everything out and then use press and seal wrap, and you can press it down on top of your die cuts, and then when you lift it up, they're all in the exact place you want them, and then all you have to do is glue the back and press them down. Once the glue sets, carefully remove the press and seal wrap, and boom, everything's where you want it. Now I realized that I wanted to put the bunny there, so I had to kind of peel up my eggs and then place the bunny in. And really what I should have done was added the bunny first, but that happens in card making. So I'm just adding a little glue and pushing him down where I want him to be. So we're going to just place the chocolate bunny where we want them, and then add our eggs. So this egg now, the pink egg, is dry enough that we can add our polka dots to it. So I'm going to take the die itself and add it on top of the pink egg. And I'm going to go in with a white jelly pen, the size 10 white jelly pen, and just add the polka dots to the egg. And that's what I'm just doing here. And you can see on the top of the die that it has that little hook at the top that makes this a charm, which can dangle from other cards. And we'll just carefully go in and color each of the little polka dots. I really liked how this came out. I definitely would use that RV color again. And really, you could make this a white die cut egg, and you could add rainbow polka dots to it with different distress inks or different inks that you have. Another ink line I really like is the Simon Says Stamps Positively Saturated inks, and you could go and do that, but we just went with white polka dots today. And that jelly pen doesn't take any time to dry. It's super quick. And there it is. So cute. So now we have all our pieces for the centerpiece, and I'm just going to kind of line them up, figure out where I want everything. And then we'll just glue everything down. Oh, gotta add a carrot or two. So I'll take everything off, and I'll start by gluing the chocolate bunny. And then we'll glue the 2 larger eggs down. And yes, my fingers do get very glued when I do these. And now we can put the Easter egg border and the grass border on. And you don't want to put the egg border right at the bottom of the fence line because there is that like 1/8 of an inch of the bottom of the grass border. So you just want to lift them up just a little bit. And then we can add the grass. So we're going to add just a little line of glue. And I like to glue the blades of grass down too, especially if I'm not putting anything behind them. Like after I've put it down, this way I know that when the person opens the card or if it gets mailed, that the grass isn't going to bend in the inside of the card. And we just line that up with the bottom of the fence panel. Now I've realized that once I get everything down, that I needed to trim that little bit of fence so that the panel can turn, but we'll do that after. So we're going to add another yellow gingham panel to the bottom, or I guess the last piece of this rectangle accordion. And again, I should have done this before I put the fence on, but I just measured it, trimmed it, and then added it on. And now I'm just checking out where I want the grass, making a little line, and then I'll trim that with my scissors. And we'll do the same thing for the eggs. So I need 4 eggs. And then we're going to put the little chick and the egg in behind those. And I'm just adding the little flowers to this piece. I'm from Canada, and right now we are experiencing sort of spring. It's been snowing. Last week it was 14. our plants were starting to come up. And my neighbor's crocuses were up and little pretty purple pink flowers all over their garden. And now we're seeing snow. So this is kind of a nice spring scene to make us forget that it snowed again. And I'll just place that little chick by the fence, press that down to hold the glue, and then add my other pieces. So I die cut 2 egg borders, and those 2 borders were perfect for this card. I didn't need any more. I think I actually had 2 Easter eggs left. And I believe I cut 3 grass borders, but I didn't end up using all 3, I don't think. We're just going to add a little flower. And then we're done decorating with those pieces. So that's our little Easter scene so far. So now we're going to make a place to sign the card. And I know it's a little difficult once this card's all put together to sign. You can kind of maneuver it on the table to sign. This die set comes with this really cute frame that looks like a picture frame. So I'm going to use that with some pale blue cardstock and then do a white cardstock center. And see, that just adds so much cute detail to that frame. And we'll just glue that down first. And then we'll add the white centerpiece. So now you have a little place to sign the card. And you don't really need a whole lot of sentiment with Karen's pop-up cards, because it's opening one of those is something all on its own. It's so amazing. So I've had to trim that little bottom piece so that the card will turn. And I'm just adding the flower back on. But I realized I've put the flower too low, so we have to move the flower up a bit. So now we're going to glue these little tabs together. So I'm just going to add a little dab of glue, fold them down, and then we're going to attach them to the other two tabs in the center panel. And these two are going to be a mountain fold, so they stick out. Now, because these tabs are so tiny, you have to be real careful. It can be a little finicky, but if you have something to hold it, like your tweezers, that helps too. Now, this back fold is going to be a valley fold. So the tabs on the middle panel are going to attach to the back of the tabs on the last panel. And I hope that makes sense. And I'm sorry that's not very centered in the frame. And you're just going to hold that in place until the glue sets. And you really want to make sure that you hold this until the glue sets. Otherwise, it could pop open. But if you just have a little patience, and it doesn't take long. And now I'm just going to push this all together. Now, as you can see, when you close the rectangle accordion, the outer side doesn't have a frame around it. So I did cut extra frames. And I am going to put a frame around that because that's going to be the front of the card. So then when you open it, all this Easter stuff pops out at you, which is really cool. So it's always good to cut extra frames. And you could put extra frames on the rest of the back of the panel. I would suggest doing that once you have all of the panels glued together before you attach everything completely. Do the front, do the back if you want to do all three panels on the back. And I'm just going to hold that down until the glue sets. And just press around the edges just to make sure. And that's our finished card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye now.